Hello and welcome back. In this video, we are going to create our first controller. So inside the gig service source controllers folder, I'll create a file called create.ts. Okay, so this is the method that will be used to, or the controller method that will be used to add the gig to Elasticsearch and also to MongoDB. So here I'm creating the function. It's asynchronous request of type request, and then response of type response. Okay, and then promise of type void. Okay, now what I want to do is I will need to validate. Remember that we already created our scheme. Okay, so we need to use this gig create schema. Okay, so the first thing is, let's go to our user service controller seller and then create. We want to copy this part here where we do the actual validation, or maybe I can just we can just do it again from scratch. So const error, okay, equal to await promise.resolve, and then the schema name is create gig schema, then import it dot validate. Now you can see the validate method has two methods. It has the validate, which is the synchronous method, and the validate async, which is the asynchronous method. I am using the synchronous method, okay, and then I'll pass request.body. Now, because this is synchronous, I'm passing it inside this promise.resolve so that it's going to return it as a promise. Okay, so if you use the async, it's going to be different. Okay, and then here, if there's an error, so error dot details. Okay, so if there's an error, then this details property will be inside this error object. So if we have this details property inside the error object, that means there's an error. So we throw new bad request error, and then I'll pass error dot details, which is an array, at get the value at index 0 dot message, and then the other part I'll just say create gig method. Okay, so if there's an error, then we call this bad request error. If no error, we need to upload. Okay, so we need to upload the cover image. Remember that we're going to send the cover image of the gig. Okay, here, yes, we're going to send this cover image, but the cover image, we are not going to use a public ID for it. We are going to allow Cloudinary to create the public ID, okay, because we want to be able to change the cover image. Okay, so const results upload API response, okay, equal to await uploads. We have our uploads method, and then we just pass in our request.body.cover image. Okay, I can cast this as upload API response. Okay, so now if this upload API response is successful, we can check the content. You can see the content of the upload API response. Okay, so what we want to do is, if it is successful, the upload API response will contain this public ID. Okay, so if this result contains a public ID, then it is successful. But if it does not contain a public ID, that means it's an error. Okay, so I'll say if no results dot public ID. Okay, then we throw new error, new bad request error. Okay, and we pass the properties. I'll say file upload error. Okay, try again. and then here I'll just pass in this create gig method string. Okay, so if this results object does not contain a public ID, then it returned an error. Okay, but if it's returned an actual response, then we need to create our seller gig. So here I'll say const, I'll call this gig of type iSeller gig. And now to construct this will take some time, so I will just copy and paste, and then you can take a look at it. So you can pause the video, and then we are adding the seller ID. Remember that they're all coming from request body except the cover image, because we uploaded the cover image here. And then the data we want, if we go to upload response, the data we want is the secure URL. You have a URL, but what we want is the secure URL right here. Okay, so for the cover image, we are setting result.secure URL, but every other property we are getting from request.body. Okay, so this is what we want to use to create the gig. And then down here, const created gig is going to, remember the created gig will return iSeller gig, and then we'll call await, then create gig, and then we pass gig. Okay, let's see this method. Okay, remember what it does: adds to MongoDB, publishes, and then adds to Elasticsearch, and then we return the created gig. Okay, so here after that we just call res.status, and then we pass the status codes dot created 201. Okay, dot JSON, and then message. The message is going to be gig created successfully. Okay, and then we pass the specific gig property. So I'll say gig, and the value is going to be created gig. Okay, so let us export, and I'll export this as gig. Okay, this is just all we need in order for us to be able to create a gig, or a seller to create a gig. We validate. Then after validation, if it's successful, we upload. If the upload is successful, then we create the gig and then send this response back to the API gateway. This is just all we need. Let's now add the gig routes in the routes folder. Okay, so here in the route folder, I'll create a file called gig.ts, and then here we are going to, let's add our router of type router. Okay, we are getting this from Express, and then this is going to be Express. Yeah, it doesn't always import, I don't know why, so manually add it, express.router. Okay, and now I'll create my gig routes, and it's going to return router. Down here I can just return router, or return, and also I can export gig routes right here. Okay, so now we want to add the route to create. So the first route will be to create, so it's going to be router.post, and then it's going to be /create, and then we add the create method. Now I think I will rename this. Let me just rename this to create. No, it's going to conflict. Yeah, if I call it create gig, there's already a method called create gig. Okay, so let me just import the gig. Okay, maybe later we are going to rename it. Okay, so it's post and then /create, and then we pass the gig method. We can now use this gig routes. Let's use it in our main routes file. Here we are calling the gig routes, so I'll pass this here. Okay, and then import it. Okay, I think I already have, this is going to be at gig. Okay, so we've added the create routes and then controller the route, and then added the main route file or route function to the main route file.